This is the Page Publishing Book Club. Good evening, I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini, along with my engineer, Rob Barrett, and you are that guy or that woman, that person who's got a book inside just clawing to get out. It's in there, or you wouldn't be here, waiting to hear how our authors, most of them first-timers, are going to inspire you tonight. Or maybe you're already published and you just want to see what your competition is doing, whatever. I will tell you this. Our first author is bound to get some attention, and it'll be interesting to see what kind. James Whitaker joins us from Las Vegas, and I'm just guessing the title of your book might be offensive to someone and might be welcomed by others. It is called A Message to My Black People, Stop Being the Nigga in America. James, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Well, it's just a personal account, narrative from me, a message from me personally. It's just that I feel that it's time for Black people to step up, and better themselves, to try to improve our image and try to make our race better, make our race proud. A comedian once said there were two types of Black people: hardworking, decent, law-abiding family people, and then you have the dumb, lazy, good for nothing, try to rob you, looking for handout people that they call niggas. He said niggas always messes up for Black people. Every time we take 3 steps forward, some dumbass nigga come up and does something or say something that takes us 5 steps back. So I just feel it's a time to get out there and make the word known that, we can do things a lot better, because there are too many feel-good stories about Black achievements and Black success in the media. They always get overshadowed by something some dumbass person does that really makes us look bad as a whole, and it overshadows that positive feel-good story about Black people.
Like what?
Like, say, for instance, the great job that Simone Biles did in the Olympics, the legacy of President Obama, the story of students getting accepted to 8 Ivy League schools. Just when we're trying to embrace that, all of a sudden something comes along like the Facebook 4, when they kidnapped a mentally challenged person and tortured them and broadcast it live on Facebook. Or even more recently, the Facebook killer, Steve Stevens.
So what do you advise people to do?
One of the most important things, first of all, educate yourself, because that's key. Also inform yourself of what's going on, what's happening with your people. Take a stance, don't always fall into that negative stereotype. I'm so sick of our people just always looking for excuses for the problems instead of taking actions for what is the root of the problem.
You don't think people are going to be offended when they see "Stop Being the Nigga in America"?
Well, at the very beginning, I mentioned that this is just my personal opinion. It's not meant to anger or disparage somebody. And if you can't agree with where I'm coming from, just read the book and at least try to understand the points that I'm making. Basically, what I put on paper is what a lot of Black people are thinking and what they talk about amongst themselves in the lunchroom, break room, the water cooler, or around people they trust, but they're probably afraid to say it in a public forum. So sometimes when people are screwing up, you just have to let them know and make it known. Because sometimes they might not think that they're screwing up because they get so accustomed to life like that they think it's the norm. Right. They think that this is what they got to do every day, that they don't feel like they have to make a change to try to better themselves and improve their lives. So I'm just getting that word out there. I like organizations like Black Lives Matter, but I feel that they were activated for the wrong cause, because I hate it when we just organize and unite when we feel we've been dealt an injustice. Me personally, I feel like Black Lives Matter should have been marching through the streets of Baltimore. They should have been marching through the streets of Chicago, trying to put an end to all the gangs and the violence and the murder rate and so forth. Every time our race does something negative that really sets us back, I feel that's when we should mobilize and unite. Not just when we feel we've done something, we've been dealt an unjust hand. We need to get out there and really mentor our youth, educate our people, and just try to make something of their lives, and just stop always depending on the government or looking for handouts. Granted, what they did back in the civil rights area needs to be commended, but nowadays I think it's all just a media circus. Okay, they only show face to get attention, to get notoriety. Because me personally, I feel like Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, even President Obama, we need to take over the organization and the activities in the Black communities and tell our people, hey, we're doing things all wrong. Okay, we're really messing up here. Okay, We need to get back and let people know that, they can create a better lives for themselves. First and foremost, you got to stay in school. You can't complain about businesses coming to the black community when you continue to rob and burglarize them, or when you get upset with the government, you want to riot, you want to burn down businesses. You can't complain about there not being jobs available for you, or you can't find a job when you can't even take the time to stay in high school, which is a free education. Plain and simple, stop making excuses and take action. Okay, that's basically what I'm saying. Hold yourself accountable, hold yourself responsible, do things for yourself first before you start complaining about the government.
How do you get this message out to the people who need to hear it?
I got a couple of friends who are in marketing and advertising, so we're just trying to get the word out. I've gave it to some influential people in the neighborhood and also at the school. So I'm trying to go through the school district to see if I can even get an audience with, say, one particular high school at a time. So I'm taking baby steps right now. So I'm a first-time author, so this is my first time doing this. So I'm really trying to just break into that playing field to get this done.
Yeah.
So I'm spreading the message as much as I can.
Well, I'll tell you, it takes a lot of guts to write something like this, James, and I'm interested, really, to see what kind of reaction you get. From birth until sunset, poisoned to death. How's that for a title? It is Marie DiMercurio's story of how she uncovered the chemicals and preservatives in food that she says were killing her, literally killing her. How so, Marie?
Basically because all of these chemicals interfere with all of God's creation of the human body. They take over and they put in all kinds of toxins and pollutants that the human body cannot even function properly. So that's how the diseases all start progressing in there, the over-accumulation of all of these toxins.
What happened to you?
Well, I had fibromyalgia. I was dealing with addictions, coming out of addictions. I was dealing with cravings, food addictions. I mean, I'm still, even to this day, I'm still a food addict. I will admit that. Like, I had gone through the doors of AA 38 years ago, and I could stop drinking, I can stop drugging, I can stop the smoking, I took away the caffeine, I did all these other kinds of things, but you don't stop eating. So I had to figure out, through the process of all these different additives that were creating all kinds of challenges, I had anaphylactic shock from sodium benzoate, different things that would come up, and I'm going, what is going on with me? I am like, seriously, I'm suffering from all these things, skin problems, headaches, migraines, digestive problems, all kinds of things. And I had an allergist told me, just don't eat any stuff. Well, what are you supposed to eat? Duh. Because we're so ingrained in all the boxes and the packaging and everything else, we don't look beyond until all the whole foods. And that's what I had to learn to do. That I went to school for natural hygiene, and that's when I started learning about whole foods, fresh, raw foods, put in proper combinations. I started losing weight. I was 165 pounds at one time, and I'm 115 now, and I've stayed at that 15 years. When I get off of the track, I can put on some pounds. I can start getting sick. But these are the things that I've learned. This book is my journey through all of that. I work in a hospital. I watch all these people go through serious challenges, especially with the cancers and the heart problems and kidney failures and all kinds of things. It's the overbuildup of toxins and chemicals in their bodies. And that's why I wrote about all the different diseases, the different things that challenge people, the addictions, the cravings, diabetes, obesity, things that our country suffers from. All the people in our country, we suffer from so many different things. And people don't know what is going on. They just know that they're sick and they need help.
Right, and they don't know what to do. This is part of a big movement now against GMOs and stop eating processed foods. And whose fault is it? It's when women went back to work and we stopped cooking our own food and we stopped growing our own vegetables and we started relying more on packaged foods. There are people who believe the obesity epidemic, that it's about the chemistry in your body not being able to handle processing the processed food, and that's at the root of the obesity epidemic. And that's why there's a movement now to grow your own foods and community gardens in cities and shares where you can pick up farm stuff. I mean, you're definitely onto something. It's just a shame that you had to go through such a difficult time. Do you have
I do.
suggestions in your book?
Yes, I do have suggestions in here. I've got resources. I've got cheat sheets. This book, I've told people, is not a book you just read through and put on the shelf. It's got recipes. It's one of those helping books. You put it with your cookbooks. You put it someplace where you're going to have it all the time and see it and read it and go over and say, oh, I have a question on that, and you go and look at that too.
All right, Marie, thanks so much. Robert Gallagher has an interesting concept for his book. It's entitled Grey's TV Season 1. All right, paint us this picture, Robert.
An individual driving down Highway 395 in Nevada is in a car accident. That's right next to Area 51, where all the space alien reports are from. And a alien offers him the chance to go through several lives and adventures that in no way affect the real history of the world, but it's simply a TV show for the people on the alien's home planet, which is called Melmac.
That's the name of the planet?
That's the name of the planet, 132 light years away.
Okay, so you're dead, but you're in a TV series. So the alien brings you back to life, and you meet Phil Silvers, you said.
Yes, the alien naturally can't appear as the Greys naturally do, decides that he wants to assume the appearance of Phil Silvers, the old Sergeant Bilko on TV.
Okay.
In the 50s and 60s. Much before your time, Andrea.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people I don't think are going to remember that, but maybe they'll Google it now.
I certainly hope so. He travels back to various times in history. The first trip is back to 1914, just prior to World War I, and becomes friends with Kaiser Wilhelm, the Kaiser of Germany, turns Germany into a much more congenial, pleasant country. Germany wins the war. They form a European Union. He winds up marrying the Tsarina of Russia, Titania, who was a second daughter of the Tsar. And they have a wonderful life together, great many adventures. The book is not really a science fiction, but an adventure book that going through the various battles and trials and tribulations that go with modifying a new world.
Is this an ongoing series that you've started?
Yes, it is. I've already got season 2 completed, and it's being edited, and I'm about halfway through season 3.
What do you see this becoming?
Just a series of adventures. The second book, he goes to West Texas right after the war between the states, or as you Northerners call it, the Civil War.
Yeah, that Civil War thing.
Yeah, but it's war between the states and Texas.
Right.
Anyway.
Where'd you get this? Where'd this come from?
A very strange mind. I probably have about 15 books in my mind right now, and I draw some on my own adventures in life. I had a fairly exciting life, I guess. 32 years in the Army, 5 combat tours, 7 Purple Hearts. Got a few medals for valor, but I draw a lot of it from my own experience and my own feelings. I try and make it funny, sex, violence, rock and roll, and a little TV.
What made you write this now?
I think it was a bottle of Jameson's Irish whiskey that convinced me to write the book.
There you have it. There you have it.
That's it.
Writers all the time say, where do I get my inspiration? How do I become inspired? Now we know.
Yeah. Drink a lot of Irish whiskey. That'll help.
I'm going to pass that along. All right. All right. And with that, we are going to take a very quick commercial break. Don't you go anywhere. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you: printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
Welcome back to the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. The first book of Why. Why I Am Me. That's the title of our next book, and one that brought author Thomas Williamson back to his childhood during the Cold War. Thomas.
Well, why is I had seen a quote from Mark Twain. Said the two most important days of your life are the day you are born and the day you learn why, which I assume is probably your last day on this earth. But the book started not as a book at all, but a letter to my daughter, my youngest child, after her mother had died, and her grandfather, both her grandmothers. We had all had a rough time. Anyway, and it grew from there because I realized that my family really didn't know that much about me because I wasn't home as much as I should have been because of what I was doing. And also I realized that they didn't know that much about my parents or their grandparents. So it's a book about the family and growing up during Cold War times and nuclear brinkmanship and all the things that the family had gone through. And that's how it started, and it grew from there.
Would you talk about what your role was in all of this?
Well, the book is seen through my eyes, growing up through the Cold War as a military brat, being in places where your parents were actually in danger, doing things, overflights of the Soviet Union during the Cold War. My father was involved in the Francis Gary Powers U-2 flight in an RB-47, which is a intelligence gathering plane just a few months after that. That had been shot down by the Soviets and the threat of nuclear retaliation and start of World War III. So it's about all those things. And both my brothers are retired from the Air Force. I was an operative with the CIA from 1979 to 1980. Did some things with them, and then ironically later, the late 90s, did some things in the Washington, D.C. area through another company for them, where actually my oldest son was also involved. So it's basically a life story at the early start of the Cold War up through early 2000s.
And it's all true.
It is all true. What I want to accomplish is to know that my children, had some parents and grandparents that accomplished some things. I want them to be remembered. As I was starting to write the book and get into things, I realized that lots of people do lots of important things, and none of them are remembered. And why that was brought to mind is my father was one of the earliest pilots to fly a B-47, which was a six-jet engined bomber. At the time it came out, it was the fastest plane in the world. And his co-pilot, who they had an early crash with, was in a plane with another fellow, and they crashed. I just realized that there was no one in the world that even knew that man had existed. He had been in World War II, come out of the war, been in several crashes of the first jet bombers, and he wasn't even 30 years old, and he was dead.
Yeah.
But I guess it's a book about self-exploration, what makes me me, why I am me, and just living through an interesting time.
Oh, interesting times indeed. Looking forward to the next 2 books, Thomas. Thanks. John Petrie was a TV producer for some notable networks before he started his own production company, and now he's written a book called Seeking Closure, and it has nothing to do with television, right, John?
Oh, no. No, there's nothing about television in my book,
Okay.
other than a few probably negative. I spent a lot of my time also in news when I was working for stations, and I don't have a lot of respect for news as it's constituted now, and I suppose I took some shots at them in the book. I think they're more reporting it to fit their own agenda rather than actually telling people what's going on in the world, which is what I thought news was all about. But
Distressing on many levels. What's the story?
well, I always thought I kind of had a book in me, but I never had. First of all, when I was working, I never had the time to do it. And then after I retired, I decided I think I can do this. The story is about a person who was hired and employed by the CIA as a black ops assassin, and he reaches a point where it's time to retire. He learns he has a granddaughter from a previous marriage that he was pretty much estranged from, and the book starts out with his last mission for the CIA, and then he retires with the idea of he was a pretty lousy husband when he was married and not much of a father, and he decides he wants to be a very good grandfather. So the story then picks up 15 years later when his granddaughter is 15, and he's perfectly happy, well-adjusted, and things are going well. And then, quite by accident, a quirk of fate puts him in a situation where he has to go back to what he was 15 years before as an older man. And I think the catch to it is the fact that when this happens, he's 63 years old, but he's still in good shape, and but he still has to go back and do what he did before in order to resolve what happens to him. I don't want to tell you what happens to him because there goes the story.
Okay, well, does the book end here, or is there a sequel?
Well, not a sequel. I'm working on, let's say, a continuation, and it picks up a portion of the story and goes on from there.
How are you going to get people to read this?
Well, my wife is a former human resources executive, and she has a very long mailing list, so she sent out a piece to them. I'm contacting everybody I've known or ever known and saying, hey, it's there. If you like it, if you want to buy it, great. If you don't like it, tell your friends about it. And if it gets to the point where I can go do book signings, and I'm probably going to try and line up some things, at least in the Charlotte area, that's how I'm going to promote it.
Did you have a good experience with Paige? Let me ask you.
They have done everything they promised to do. I had a publication coordinator who shepherded me through the whole process, and I thought she was wonderful. And not only the technical side of getting a book published, but she was encouraging. And when it's your first time out, and I'm supremely confident in what I know in this world, but this is something I didn't know. And so I just say, I don't know it, and I relied on her, and she did a wonderful job. Did I pay money for it? Of course I did. But I don't mind that, and so far I felt it was absolutely worth the money. Okay. And maybe if I can sell some books, I'll get it all back.
All right, John, that's the spirit. Thank you for that. Finally, Jerry Rose was a scientist and sociologist, but always worked hard to bring in the lighter side. He takes his humor very seriously, particularly in his book entitled Wordplay, On the Road and Home Again. Now, you would call this a collection of stories, right?
Yes, a collection of stories. I love that description. Each poem is a story. Something happens to somebody, whether it really happens or whether it's a fantasy of what might happen. There is drama in each poem, and reflects the other side of my main activity over several years, which is to be very involved in theater at every level, from directing to acting to playwriting, so that I bring that particular perspective, and I make of each poem a story that stands on its own.
Is there a particular theme that runs through it?
I would not say a theme, no. There are several characteristics of the poems. They deal with, in some way or another. They deal with travel. Many of them describe trips, and they're designed as a road trip kinds of books, the kind of book that you like to have along with you to whenever there's a dull moment or a need for some interaction among the people traveling together. They can whip out their wordplay and open it almost randomly and find something interesting to read. Most often funny, more or less funny. Everybody has different senses of humor, but people are not tied to the completion of anything like a novel, which would require more focus than most of us, and I include myself in that category. Most of us, I think, we really have trouble reading books because we have trouble focusing our attention for that long on any one subject. When I first came, I talked to the local librarian, and I said, here are some things I've done. I've done these kinds of plays and these kinds of readings. Is there any programming at the public library? Things, and she instituted, we have Nights with Jerry once a month. I put on a program. Tomorrow I'm going to be doing a staged version of The Fatal Glass of Beer, that old 1933 W.C. Fields movie, and I have an interesting and varied, I think, program.
You've got a perfect platform, then, to sell your book, Jerry.
Well, I'm hoping. I think the product is important. It has a beautiful cover that tells its story.
Okay.
A picture of people leaving a train station and people in a sick room, one person reading to another, and that just tells the story of what I would want the book to be. People will enjoy and have a better quality of life because they've met it. I would like the book to make a lot of money. I am in a very less than affluent situation, and I want to make monetary profit from the work, but as much as anything, I want to continue to be the clown and to show off.
Well, Jerry, I wish you all the luck in the world. You clown on, all right? Well, that wraps up another edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Can you believe it, Rob? Thank you so much for being here. We are ready to roll out a whole new group of authors, and we hope you will listen in and find out that the challenges you may be facing are no different than the ones every first-time author faces, but the ones that you heard here tonight, they got over the hump, and so can you. So come back next week, same time, same place, or download us anytime at 710WOR.iheart.com. Have a great weekend.